Welcome, everyone, to episode 228 of Thoughtium's Navigating Now virtual roundtable series. My name is Nora Egan, and I'm the Associate Chief of Staff here at Thoughtium. You can catch us live every Thursday at 3 p.m. at thoughttium.com/live. Today, we're going to be talking about redefining well-being to help teams and leaders thrive. So we believe that well-being is about caring for humans, and it's vital to a thriving and growing business. I'm very excited to welcome my coworker, Lydia Ann, to the table with me. She is a senior consultant, a leadership coach, a somatics practitioner, and together we're going to be exploring embodied leadership and how that shifts the way that teams show up, connect, and can influence each other. We're also going to touch on why presence is a performance strategy and how there are small, doable practices that you can start doing today to help you on this path. So welcome, Lydia Ann.
Hi, Nora. So good to be
Hello.
here.
Thank
Hi.
you for being here with me. Lydia Ann is based in Boston, so always good to see her face. I'm going to start with just a more open-ended question since we're talking about the theme of well-being, and that might not be familiar to many people. So as a leadership coach, as a consultant here, what does well-being mean to you?
It's such a good question. And I think it's so important for us to create space to answer that on our own. For me, I define well being as the ability to tend to ourselves, to have the support, the resources, the people to be able to care for ourselves in a way that is really tailored to our needs and also really intentional. So it's really
Love
about
it.
access. Yeah, access and the ability to tend to us.
Yeah. I love the shift of looking inward as opposed to outward of
Mhm.
things you need to buy, practices you need to start doing. That can be really overwhelming. And when it is starting
Mhm.
with yourself, how much deeper the work can
Mhm.
be.
Mm.
Doesn't mean easier, but deeper.
Deeper.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it can be well-being can be a trap, I think, for some of us, where we think it's about doing more and being in action and, "Oh, I have to go to this yoga class, and I have to, now do this cold plunge," and all of the new trends that are out there, and my lens is looking more at what is our internal state and what do I need, and be really curious about, our individual state.
Yeah. I really appreciate that because I'm a doer. I'm an executing of tasks and you're constantly reminding me that like being is better than doing. And by
Mm,
not starting with the being, like you can't really do well. So I
mm,
love that reframe that you've introduced to me and now get to
mm.
bring to everybody else.
Well, I'm excited to bring it forward because I've been contemplating this intersection of leadership and well-being and somatics, which I know we're going to get into for
Yeah.
many years now. So to be able to bring forward that perspective and help other leaders and those who are listening either now or catching the replay to just reevaluate what well-being means for them and how they can tend to themselves is just really exciting. So I'm
Yeah.
excited for this.
Cool. Well, first thing I want to start with is because we're saying a lot about leadership, well-being shows up in leadership. Can you just define really quick what we're talking about when we say a leader?
So again, through my lens, I see everyone as a leader because at a bare minimum, regardless of your job title, regardless of your responsibilities, you are a leader of your own life. So at a bare minimum, we have the ability to influence ourselves, to shape how we show up. And even in the workplace, I think everyone is a leader, whether you're an individual contributor, whether you are leading a work stream, we all have like the power and agency to influence our peers and show up as a leader every single day. So I really think it's ownership that we all get to take on. It's not defined by anyone's title.
Absolutely. I love that because this relates to everybody. It doesn't matter where you are in the chain of work. So know that all the tips we have today are going to impact you no matter where you are.
Absolutely.
So leading from that, like what do you see, how do you see well-being playing a part in leadership, in
Mm.
being a leader?
I see it really, really challenging to be able to show up as a centered, grounded leader if you're not well tended to. If you're not able to care for yourself, it's really, really challenging to be present with your peers, with your team, if you are not well cared for. And that's, by your support system, by the tools and resources that you have. If we are stuck in a state of perpetual survival mode, it's going to be really challenging for us to make intentional, conscious decisions from a really grounded place if we do not have the access to care for ourselves.
Totally. And I love how it's just like this is about being a human. This is about showing up in any
Mhm.
room. This isn't even just the workplace. This is about, tending to yourself, like you just said. And I think well being can seem fluffy. And when you
Mhm.
can't always tie it to a metric or, something that has an ROI exactly, it can get a little lost. And this is why we do our best to bring this into all of the work that we do, whether it is really high level strategic or whether it is connection between teams. Like it's
Mhm.
relevant high and low.
Absolutely. And I do think we're starting to see more of that harder to measure data coming forward, where we're seeing employees who are evaluating, does my organization support work-life balance? Does my organization support my well-being? And they're starting to make more intentional choices, exiting organizations if they feel like there isn't that support and there isn't that alignment. So I think it's a trend that we're seeing in the coaching space, in the of course, in the well-being space outside of the workplace. But we're starting to see that data come forward that's validating how important it is for us to care for ourselves, but also to feel like our workplaces and our leaders are also prioritizing our well-being.
Definitely. Definitely. Well, I'm excited to get into the somatics piece because this is very new to me.
Mm,
Um, I'm a registered dietitian, so I feel like I know health really well and like
mm.
physical, mental, emotional are pieces. But as far as the somatics piece goes, I'd love for you to just introduce what somatics means as a practitioner for you.
I'd love to. I've gotten into the somatic space, 4 or 5 years ago, and I've just gone deep into it since, and I'm excited to be able to like bring it to the leadership well-being conversation. So somatics was a coin termed by a professor named Thomas Hanna in the 1970s, and soma, the first part of somatics, means body in Greek. So it's this body-oriented view of tuning inwards and looking at our body as a source of wisdom, as a source of intelligence, as a place where we can better understand our state and how it is that we're showing up. So that includes, the sensations that we feel, the emotions that we feel. It's really our felt experience. And I like to describe it as what's happening from the neck down.
Mm,
We as a society are very cerebral, especially in the leadership space. It's all about strategic thinking and planning and metrics and KPIs. And somatics invites us to look below the head and see what is happening here in my body and what information that can tell me. So, for example,
mhm.
maybe you are live on a podcast or getting ready to go live on a podcast to talk about somatics and well-being, and you feel a drop in your stomach or you feel your stomach tighten. That is a somatic cue that's telling us what emotion we're experiencing. And so somatics is really this tool or practice of tuning inwards and really listening to the body and then being able to move forward with that wisdom.
Yeah. For me, just when I hear that, I'm like, does the nervous system play a part in somatics? Are they one and
Mm,
the same? Or how can you explain that?
Such a good question. I would say yes, they're one and the same. So our nervous system is really the bundle of nerves that goes from our head down to our body and back up.
Mhm.
And what somatics does is not only are we looking from below the neck and looking at the body, we're looking at the connection between body and mind. We're looking at that flow of information that's going bottom up. We tend to be very top down when it comes to how we lead, how we show up and tend to ourselves. Somatics invites us to look bottom up. There's some really cool science around the vagus nerve, which runs, all about the vagus nerve,
Love
the
the
one
vagus
you
nerve.
love the vagus nerve. And there's cool science that shows how 80% of the information flows from our body up to our brain, and only 20% flows from our brain to our body. So if we are working just with our brain and the strategy and strategic thinking, we're missing this really big opportunity to work with where the majority of information is actually coming from, which is body up. So that's the flow of the nervous system sending information up, down, up, down. There's just more coming from the bottom up.
Wow. I didn't know that. Learned something new already. Okay, so when it comes to somatics, how does this show up for leaders? Like, how does this make
Mm.
them better leaders? I know you've touched on it, but how can it shape how they show
Mm,
up?
mm. Such a good question. Leaders are tasked day in, day out to think critically, to make decisions, and make decisions really fast. Our world is so fast paced, and technology is evolving in a way that's tasking us in the workplace to think quicker, think more innovatively. Somatics allows leaders to make, in my view, better decisions, more grounded decisions, decisions that are more in line with their values, in line with their mission or vision as an organization, because we're taking the time to slow down and pause and check in with the information that's coming from the bottom up, we can make decisions that are more congruent
Yeah.
with the things that matter to us because we're working with that intuitive internal state information, and we're not outsourcing our information as leaders and looking externally. What's the best decision for my team here? What's the best decision for my organization? Or even leaders that are, tasked with communicating. We do a lot of change management work here at Thaudium, and a lot of change management includes communicating out what those changes are. And so when we take a somatic lens to say communicating out a organizational change to your team, and you're getting ready to have that team meeting, and you feel maybe your shoulders drop down, your stomach contract, or your heart is racing, that's all information that leaders can use to gauge, is this really the best approach that I want to take to share this information out? And it allows them to really take inventory and take stock of how it is that they're showing up and be more intentional, be more present, be more purposeful with how they're showing up for their team and for the organization.
Love it. I feel like a lot of that is like these stress signals or these
Mm,
sensations that you're feeling are like messengers. Like
yeah.
listen to them as opposed to push them aside and focusing on, delivering this message in
Mm,
those 5 minutes.
mhm,
Like just the time to actually integrate with like how you want to come across in that, I think
mm.
is often overlooked.
Oh,
Um
absolutely.
and with the, like, productivity piece, like, that's so much of what people are judged by, and that's why people get promotions, that's, what shows you as a good worker in today's world. So, we are wanting to shift a little bit more to presence over productivity.
Mm,
Can you talk a little bit about how important presence is, and sometimes it could be more important than productivity?
mm, mm. Such productivity is that metric that is used, to your point, for performance increases, compensation changes. Is this person ready for the role? We look so much at output, and I
Right.
don't want to say productivity isn't important. Of course, outcomes matter, results matter. Otherwise, businesses wouldn't be able to stand if they didn't prioritize results.
Yeah.
Presence allows us to still prioritize productivity, but it allows us to be here in the moment and really evaluate what is more important right now. Is it more important for my team member to show up and get this done if they're balancing something deeply personal in their own life, or is it better to create a little bit of space so that they can take the time that they need to tend to themselves and care for themselves, and then be able to come back more resourced, more grounded, and oftentimes way more capable of actually executing on those deliverables. And dare I say, creating more enjoyable workplaces, places where people feel valued, places where people feel like they are seen as human beings. So much of the work that we do is about prioritizing the human, the learner that is on the receiving end of the work that we do. And so presence allows us to prioritize the person first before we shift to looking at what is that person delivering on, or what are those
Right.
expectations. So for me, when we focus on presence, it's taking this very human centered view of the workplace and moving away from this machine like view of the workplace and the people who are there, because we are human beings, we're not human doings. And I think that's the flip that we are kind of up against in our world today, is making sure that we're remembering the human being who's delivering on the work.
Yeah, I love that you just said how this impacts obviously not only you at work, but you in your life. And
Mm,
I heard something recently that was like stop saying work life balance and start saying work life integration. And like how
mhm,
can you be a better version of yourself in both places and not see them as being so separate.
Absolutely. And to bring it back to somatics, that's, that whole mind body connection. We tend to be very truncated and look just at our mindsets and our perspectives and someone's ability to think strategically or to plan or make decisions. But when you take a somatic based view to leadership, it's the same thing. It's about integrating and having that wholeness, looking at our life from a holistic lens, looking at personal and professional as this is my whole life. And I think when leaders take on that lens, it gives their team members also permission to show up as their full self, to bring their full self to the workplace because they're seen as whole people. And when you have that level of safety, you're going to have an incredible workplace. You're going to have that psychological safety. You're going to have all those wonderful ideas. So the ripple effect is the list goes on and on and on.
100%. And I mean, I feel like you make this sound pretty approachable. It doesn't seem like, again, this like crash course I need to do for a week. It's like really small things we start doing every day, right? So, like, how can leaders start to go from feeling like they constantly have to be doing and executing and
Mm,
performing for themselves to more of this being and presence with their
mm,
teams?
It's such a good question. My gut response to that question, what immediately comes up intuitively, which is what somatics is all about, is pausing long enough to listen to the story within. You had
Mm,
mentioned something earlier that with the stress triggers, we can be very conditioned to override our own signals and just bypass what's happening internally and just say, "Oh, it's okay. I don't have to focus on my
hide
heart."
from it.
Hide
Yeah.
from that. So it's really about creating space. It's a phrase that we use so much here at Thoughtium because there is so much power in creating space to tune inwards and listen. Even the invitation of, how am I feeling in my body? For some, if we're very used to being in the mental space, that answering that question can bring up sensations in and of itself.
Totally.
Creating space to even be with what's coming up for me when I think about getting into my body. How far away do I feel from that concept? And I would say my number one recommendation is to be both curious about that answer and really compassionate, not
Mm,
judging what that sensation is, not judging what that story is, or moving into uh, I'm feeling this way. This is my state, and I need to immediately shift it. Really challenging ourselves to step back and just notice first before we take any action to drive any kind of state shift from, uncertain to certain, from unclear to clear.
right.
Of course, we can make those shifts with somatic tools, practices, support. But my lens is let's first be with what that experience is, uncover what's leading that, and then we can start moving to solving for that need and closing that gap. So pausing to be curious and compassionate, not judging or naming that experience yet, just
Yeah.
listening to the story first.
Yeah, I love you talking about just the uncomfortability that will probably
Mm,
come up if this
mm,
is the first time you're asking yourself these questions or checking in with your body. Like, don't expect this to be some instant
mm,
comfortable thing for you,
absolutely.
as with any other new habit you're trying to build, but sit with the uncomfortability and like listen to what comes from it.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think normalizing that discomfort is a really big part of the work here and in the somatic space. And even taking breaks from that too. Maybe it feels a little too overwhelming, a little too
Yeah.
uncomfortable, and just taking a break and then coming back. But I think absolutely normalizing that because we live in a society that doesn't endorse this body oriented view or this body oriented style of leadership, there's going to be like stretchy, sticky points of getting to orient ourselves to that internal state. But if we stay with that, the transformation is just phenomenal. And most of all, I would say it's lasting because we get to really
Mhm.
shift how we're being, and it becomes really unconscious that we're present, we're grounded, we're centered, we're intentional. It becomes something that is just who we are.
Right. Right. Which is something you emulate so well. Um, so for people that do need a little bit more of a concrete, like, well, how do I do this? Like, what
Mm.
do I do so I can be, which is how I tend to think. Do you have any like little micro tips for how people can start introducing this into their day?
I do, and I appreciate just you naming that that's where you're at because they are. I'm like that too. There's so many of us in the workplace that are like, okay, well, now what? What do I do with that information?
Right.
So, what I would recommend are there's 3 scans that you can do, and you can start kind of top down, or you can just kind of go with whatever feels like it's calling to you. And so, there are 3 scans that allow us to start building somatic awareness. So that is the awareness of what's happening at the body level. So the first one is a body scan, and this can be done, in 30 seconds. It can be a minute. It can be guided or unguided. There's lots of resources online, but it's again tuning inwards and pausing to see what's going on in the body, and whether it's head, from the crown of the head all the way down to the toes, or just a specific part of the body. I'll offer this up because I just think it's funny. Of when is the last time you thought about the tip of your nose,
Mhm.
or like your elbow, or like the back of your ear? So there's, we have this body that we move through our days, and we don't even skip a beat to
Mhm.
think about all the different parts of our body, and most of all, where we carry tension. So when I am, say, guiding a breathwork session, one of the first things that I guide participants to is paying attention to tension in their jaw. We hold tension in our jaw, we hold
Yep.
tension in our hands. So doing a body scan to just notice parts of our body, and then parts where there's maybe tension, can be really like entry level way to developing somatic awareness. So the first one is body scan, and the second one is a breath scan. So a lot of leaders have probably heard about breath work, box breathing that's used in the Navy
Yeah.
SEALs is really effective. My recommendation is to actually just bring our awareness to our breath first without changing it, without altering it just yet, and just notice, where am I breathing? Am I breathing into my chest? Am I breathing into my stomach? Am I breathing in through my mouth, through my nose? They're all indications of where our state is at. Even the pace of our breathing. Am I holding my breath or breathing really fast? So just bringing our mind to our breath. We take hundreds of thousands of breaths a day,
Mhm.
and oftentimes we wake up and we go to bed without even thinking about this unconscious behavior that is keeping us alive.
Right.
And
Could be
so
shallow breathing all day long like most people do.
just not really not
Yeah.
really breathing. So just taking inventory first of where is my breath right now. And then again, from there, similar with the body scan, you can then move into implementing a breathing pattern to maybe bring you to a more centered state before a
Yeah.
presentation, before showing up in front of stakeholders. So body scan, and then breath scan, and then the last scan is an environmental scan, and that can be done standing, sitting, if you're not able bodied. It can be done walking. And what we're doing here is we're just taking in our physical environment. We're taking in the sounds around us. We're taking in, if we're outside, how does the sun feel on our skin in this
Mhm.
moment? What does the wind feel like on my skin? And we're just tuning in. We're tuning into the ground beneath us, and just making that connection between, wow, this is what it feels like for my feet to be hitting the ground, or touching carpet, or touching the wood, and just scanning the environment. One of the practices that I love to do is actually to close my eyes for just maybe 30 seconds. And then when I open them, is to pick 3 things in my physical environment that I didn't notice earlier that day.
Hmm. I love that. I've never done that.
It allows us to just notice small things that we just walk by every day.
Yeah.
And it expands our awareness to, wow, what else have I not noticed today?
Love it. And I love just like the creativity that comes in that. Again, it's not like this recipe of like, here's what you do to become a somatic person. It's like literally just start paying attention to things. How does that make you feel? try out the observing your breath. Like there's not a 1, 2, 3, which I think is just a refreshing.
Yeah.
This isn't about how to become a somatic leader in a day. This is how to start showing up for yourself in a better way so that
Yeah.
you can be a better leader for yourself and others.
Absolutely. In micro moments, I love what you just said, where it's not this checklist, it's not this follow the 7 habits of highly effective
Yeah.
people, endless frameworks and checklists that we have. It's just starting to pay more attention and being really curious in the process, and then being able to move with that information when it feels like it's right for us to do something with that data. But it's just yeah, simply it's noticing, it's paying attention, and it's in many ways it's just kind of waking up.
Right, right. So, as a consultant here, senior consultant here, and as a breathwork facilitator, somatics practitioner, could you give us an example of where you've seen this show up and how you've seen this impact someone that started to do
Mm.
something like this?
Mm. Yes, I absolutely in my breathwork sessions, because it is breathwork is a somatic practice, because when we're adjusting our breath, we
Mhm.
are doing something with our body, and so it makes it a somatic practice. I had a leader once in a breathwork session where at the beginning of the session, we spent some time reflecting on the question, what do I need right now? Just simply, what do I need right now? And at the start of the session, their reflection was, I need to be doing more. I need to be doing more in my career. So
Mm.
that's a reflection that came up at the start of the session, moved into the breathwork experience, where we are tuning inwards, we're allowing that intuition to come forward, that wisdom to come forward. And at the end of the experience, they shared that the message they got in the middle of the practice was, I actually need to be doing less. I actually need to be resting more. I actually need to just be being
Yeah.
and just present and enjoying my life, and not looking after a new to-do list. And so that shift of, I think I need to be doing more, to I think I need to be doing less, and for that message to come through from a somatic place, I
Mhm.
think is just a really powerful example of the wisdom that comes forward and the clarity that we can get about our lives, our leadership, decisions we want to make or need to make from this very intuitive place. So that's the example that came to mind.
I love it. It's so relatable in a we're never doing enough society that I'm sure many people would sit down for any type of experience like that and feel that way. But
Mhm.
I just love that it didn't come from you standing at the front of the room and telling her you need to do less. It was like her own message, which of course is
Mhm.
going to resonate with her so much
Absolutely.
more.
So much more. That's the beauty of somatic work, is that we are taking back our agency, and we're getting that answer, that clarity that we want from ourselves.
Right.
That's the most beautiful, I think the most beautiful part of this practice, and why it can be so transformative for leaders, is that it can sound so simple, but oftentimes the answer really is within.
Right. Which can be like almost scary as to like what is that message, but it's like start listening. Your body is calling, answer the phone.
Yeah. Ding, 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 ding.
Well, this has been such a fun intro to somatics and leadership. There's definitely going to be more to come. As Lydia Ann said, she's been on this path and journey for years now, and we're just seeing the tip of the iceberg. So, really excited to see how this impacts all the work that we do at Thoughtium, and especially how you bring it to everyone that we have on our team. So, is there anything else that you wanted to mention around the somatics in well being and leadership that we didn't get to touch on?
I think I would just say, it's an evolution. The same way that we are kind of reevaluating and redefining what does well-being mean. It's the same with, how does somatics and well-being and leadership come together. We are here at Thoughtium, always looking at new data and what's coming in, and we're applying it to this space too, and seeing how can we better arm our leaders with tools and practices to show up as the best versions of themselves. And so this is a space that we're spending time really contemplating, and it's an evolution, and we're excited to be able to bring more of our clients into this journey.
Absolutely. All right. So with that, I'm going to ask you quick rapid fire questions, just a few fun ones. I feel like I know the answers to these, but I'm excited to see your answers. So first one is, what's a daily small joy that you never skip?
Oh, I know you can definitely guess this one. This would be my morning cuddles with my dog Naya.
Mhm.
with my dog Naya. I will never skip that. So that is an every single day little joy of mine.
Love
Multiple
it.
times a day, really.
Adorable. What is a song that is currently on repeat?
That would be Milk and Honey by Tosh Sultana. I just
Ooh,
love her voice, and she has a new album. That's one of the sprinklings from the new album. So
okay.
yeah, Milk and Honey.
Okay, cool. I'll check her out. Last thing is what would be your order at a coffee shop?
My order at a coffee shop. You probably could guess this one too. It would be an iced matcha with, actually, I think we tried this together, pistachio milk.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Okay, and lastly, Lydian, if the world were more like me, it would be
Mm.
more blank.
Ah, I will say curious and then sprinkle in silly.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. Okay. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining me, Lydian. It was a joy to be with you. More to come on somatics. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in to Navigating Now. We are live every Thursday at 3 p.m., and you can find it at thoughttium.com/.